The Supreme Court for the second time has snubbed Nepali Congress in its bid to lead the Koshi province as it termed the election of Chief Minister Uddhav Thapa as anti-constitutional. The ruling has brought more turmoil in the Koshi province as a by-election looms large if the required majority for government formation is not achieved. This in turn is likely to give way to more public frustrations at the way the country has dealt with its republican structure. Good evening, I'm Sarah Sapsanama. Let's begin with the top stories of the hour. The Supreme Court calls Uddhav Thapa-led government in Koshi province anti-constitutional, rules an interim order not to take any decision that can have long-term impact. The number of pharmacies across the nation stands at 32,000, even as the country only has pharmacist number at 30,000. Pharmacies alleged of random medicine sales. 6 countries, including Saudi Arabia and Iran, are to join BRICS as new members as the announcement was made on the final day of the BRICS summit today. And employees at National Sports Council on a strike for the past 2 weeks threaten of an en masse resignation if their demands of promotion go unheeded. The Supreme Court has rejected the confidence vote taken by Koshi Chief Minister Uddhav Thapa, terming the process as anti-constitutional. Announcing its verdict, the Apex Court has also barred the Koshi provincial government from taking any policy-level decisions that could have long-term impact. The Supreme Court has clarified that the vote cast by the lawmaker who had chaired the same session cannot be counted as legal. During the floor test on 21st of August last week, the session was chaired by Nepali Congress lawmaker Israel Mansouri, who also cast his vote during the floor test. The next hearing in the case has been scheduled for 1st of September next Friday. With today's verdict, the Koshi government has yet again been rendered as acting. Leader of UML Parliamentary Party, Hikmat Karki, had moved the court, citing that the lawmaker who had chaired the session cannot vote in the floor test. This is the second time that the Supreme Court has annulled the appointment of Uddhav Thapa as the Chief Minister. Medicine is directly concerned with the lives of the general public. Experts in the field are required to aid sales and purchase of medicines. As per the provision of the Medicine Act, pharmacists, assistant pharmacists or those who have gained training regarding medicines are only eligible for sales of medicines prescribed by doctors. However, the number of pharmacists in the country is higher than the skilled workforce in the sector. The concerned entity, the Department of Drug Management, meanwhile, has failed to monitor the scenario. According to Ministry of Health, there are around 32,000 pharmacies across the country that have been granted permission for the sales of medicines. However, the number of pharmacists, assistant pharmacists and trained individuals for sales of medicines is limited to around 30,000. Based on the data, the ministry itself has predicted that medicines are being sold indiscriminately in the country. Professionals must present their academic certificate to get permission to operate pharmacies. However, the government does not have complete information in this regard. A number of individuals eligible to operate pharmacies have been involved in other sectors as well, while some have gone abroad. The regulating body for the sale of medicine, the Department of Drug Management, had monitored 3,339 pharmacies in the fiscal year 2079-80. Cases had been filed against 79 pharmacies that were found selling medicines without authorized personnel and selling illegal drugs. However, the department has been evading proper monitoring of all the pharmacies across the country, citing lack of workforce. Medicines worth around 70 billion rupees is understood to be traded in Nepal annually. The government has predicted that around 10% of the pharmacies have been operating without registration. However, the authorities' disregard in monitoring and taking action against the faulty pharmacies has fueled the tendency of toying with the public health. Now, in our Public Voice segment, today we've asked people in several provinces what should be done to remove the delay in justice delivery through courts. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
सम्बन्धित निकायका सम्बन्धित व्यक्तित्वहरू अलिकति क्रियाशील हुने र आफ्नो कार्यप्रतिको जिम्मेवारी बोध भयो भने
पेशीहरू चाँडो तोकिएको पेशी जति पनि तोकिन्छ सम्पूर्ण पेशीमा चाहिँ पैरवी गराएर मुद्दाको फर्चौट गराउनुपर्छ।
सामान्य खालको मुद्दालाई पनि 1 वर्षसम्मै लगभग चाहिँ तारिख दिएर पेशीमा चाहिँ नराखिदिने प्रवृत्तिको अन्त्य गर्नुपर्छ।
सबै सरकारी निकायहरूले न्याय दिलायो भने सबै सचेत भयो भने हामीहरूले न्याय पाउने हो, नत्र न्याय चाहिँ अब त्यस्तै हो।
एउटै कर्मचारीले बकपत्र गराउनु पर्ने अनि बेन्चमा बस्नु पर्ने, त्यो कारणले गर्दा पनि अलिकति समस्या चाहिँ छ।
छिटो चाहिँ पेशीमा चाहिँ चढाउनु पर्यो।
यसलाई सहज गर्नको लागि चाहिँ हाम्रो पद्धतिहरू नै चेन्ज गर्नुपर्ने देख्छु।
छिटो चाहिँ कानुनी प्रोसेस अगाडि बढाएर चाहिँ फैसला गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ।
अदालतमा न्यायाधीश नियुक्ति गर्दा कुनै पनि राजनीतिक पार्टीको मान्छेलाई नियुक्ति गर्नुहुन्न।
तारिख जुन चाहिँ पेशीहरूलाई चाहिँ छिटोभन्दा छिटो फैसलामा चाहिँ निर्णय गरेर फैसला चाहिँ सुनाइदियो भने सबभन्दा चाहिँ राम्रो।
अदालतमा आउने मान्छे जुन कर्मचारीहरू हुन्छ उहाँहरूले टाइममा आउनुपर्छ।
न्यायाधीशहरूले अलिकति जिम्मेवारीपूर्ण काम गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ।
मुद्दाको संख्या एकदम बढ्या छ, त्यसलाई चाहिँ अविलम्ब घटाउनुपर्छ।
जो चाहिँ सेवा लिन आउनुभएको हुन्छ उहाँहरूले नै यति क्राइट एउटा एरिया हुनु, एउटा क्राइट टाइम हुनु पर्यो, यति टाइमभित्रमा चाहिँ मलाई यो दिइसक्नुपर्छ भन्ने खालको कुरा गर्नु पर्यो।
आफ्नो काम भएन भनेदेखि गुनासो सुन्ने जुन अधिकारी छ त्यो अधिकारीसँग गएर प्रष्ट रूपमा सर्वसाधारणहरूले कुरा राख्न सक्नुपर्छ।
कर्मचारीले चाहिँ छिटोभन्दा छिटो आफ्नो काम र कर्तव्य पुरा गरेर जानुपर्छ।
न्यायपालिकामा सबभन्दा पहिला त इमानदारिता हुनु पर्यो।
सबै अदालतमा न्यायाधीशहरूको परिपूर्ति हुनु पर्यो।
We'll take a short break here. More news coming up. Welcome back. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
But before today's question, let's take a look at the results from yesterday's poll. Yesterday, we had asked you what should be done to reduce dependence on food grains. 26% voted for option A, increase production, 50% for B, commercialize agriculture, and 24% for C, farmers-friendly policy. Here's today's question. What's your take on the government inability to monitor pharmacies? Your options are A, indifference to public health, B, feeble administration, and C, irresponsible sellers. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B, or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Time now for the international update. Russian President Vladimir Putin has broken silence on the reported death of Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin. Putin has sent his condolences to the victims of the plane crash and described the Wagner boss as a talented businessman. Russian authorities have said all the 10 on board the plane were killed when it crashed near Moscow, and that passengers included Prigozhin and his right-hand man Dmitry Utkin. The Wagner mercenary group were very active in Ukraine until Prigozhin led a short-lived mutiny against the Russian military leadership in June, which Putin called treachery at that time. Six countries, including Saudi Arabia and Iran, are to join BRICS as new members next year, as announcement was made by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the final day of the summit of the group that considers itself a counterweight to Western powers. The group, encompassing 5 major emerging economies, China, Brazil, South Africa, Russia and India, agreed for BRICS expansion process during the 3-day annual summit held in Johannesburg this week. As part of the first phase, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia and the UAE will join Saudi Arabia and Iran to become full BRICS members in January 2024. The expansion of the group is part of its plan to build dominance and reshape global governance into multipolar world order that puts voices to the global south at the center of the world agenda. More than 40 countries had expressed interest in joining BRICS, and 23 formally applied to join the club, which already represented a quarter of the global economy and 40% of the world's population. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke via video link at the closing news conference less than 24 hours after the possible death of Yevgeny Prigozhin in a plane crash, but then made no mention of Prigozhin's death. Chinese President Xi Jinping announced China's financial institutions are to soon launch a special fund of $10 billion to implement the Global Development Initiative. Xi also announced China will increase cooperation with African nations and called on China and Bangladesh to push for high-quality Belt and Road Initiative or cooperation. Bangladeshi Prime Minister Hasina congratulated Xi on the 10th anniversary of the BRI, saying that it had opened a new door of development for Bangladesh. Bangladesh had formally requested to join the BRICS group back in June. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said a common currency used by BRICS countries in commercial transactions would reduce their vulnerabilities. There are 42 currencies used in BRICS nation. Now, a report by Vietnam's Institute of Geosciences and Mineral Resources has said Vietnam's iconic kissing rocks in the heart of Ha Long Bay are at risk of collapse. The twin rocks, which rise out of the bay and appear to touch or kiss and are highly popular with visitors. But experts have warned in a report that rising sea levels and fishing boats traveling too close are causing the rocks to erode. Experts at the Vietnam's Institute of Geosciences and Minerals Resources said illegal fishing and unregulated tourism were helping to speed up the erosion of the rocks. They have observed deep fissures crossing the rocks, warning that they could collapse if action is not taken to preserve them. Ha Long Bay in Quang Ninh province is dotted with hundreds of tiny islets, attracting 4 million tourists in the year 2019. Islets in the bay have long been buffeted by coastal erosion, and several other notable tourist attractions have been heavily damaged in recent years by buffeting seas. To counteract the effects, the report urged officials to introduce new regulations to the bay, including limiting the speed of boats passing through it to just 5 to 10 km per hour. It's time now for another break. We'll be right back. Time now for the sports update.
Sports news.
Officials at the National Sports Council have been staging protests for the past 2 weeks, saying that they have not received promotion for up to 27 years and that the Ministry of Sports had not implemented the policy decision taken on 21st of May this year. They have also warned of an en masse resignation if their demands are not met. This comes at a crucial hour for the country when Nepali athletes are preparing to participate at the Asian Games a month later in China. Most players and coaches are currently in closed camp training, and NSC officials have been busy in preparations for the same. However, for 2 weeks now, they have continued with their protests, demanding for the promotion process to begin as per the recently approved regulations. Many of the agitated staff have been serving in the same position for as many as 27 years. They say the government had failed to acknowledge all of their hard work and efforts. Meanwhile, NSC Member Secretary Tankalal Khising has voiced support to the ongoing protest. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has also reportedly taken their demands positively and has said a complaint filed at the Commission for the Investigation of Abuse of Authority had delayed the promotion process. The ministry has said necessary clarifications have already been submitted to the corruption watchdog. Agitating officials are to begin their third-week protest from Sunday next week, and the protest is certain to affect Nepal's preparation for the upcoming Asian Games. Nepal's national cricket team has started training session in Pakistan. The national squad, led by Rohit Paudel, had reached Pakistan yesterday. The team has now started high-performance training at Karachi's high-performance center. Since it is raining in Nepal, the team reached Pakistan for the training a week in advance. Nepal will begin the Asia Cup in Pakistan with the inaugural match slated for 30th of August, Wednesday next week. This will be Team Nepal's first ever encounter against the senior national team of Pakistan. Meanwhile, Pakistan are preparing for the Asia Cup by playing a 3 series against Afghanistan. That is all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Good night.